This is Radiant Voices Media.
Welcome to the Paths We Take podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Disanjh. Let's hit a path. Today's episode is about the path we take with our bodies, our health, and our identity as we move through different seasons of life. Because at some point for so many women, the old rules stop working. What used to feel simple suddenly feels confusing, and what used to feel similar suddenly feels foreign. My guest today, Suzanne, works with women navigating that exact moment when menopause isn't just a physical shift, but an emotional and identity shift too. When women's bodies ask you to listen differently, move differently, and care for yourself in a whole new way. This conversation isn't about fixing yourself. It's about understanding your body, rebuilding trust, and redefining what health actually means in this chapter of your life. Suzanne helps women reset the way they relate to their bodies, their energy, their food, and themselves. And today we're diving into the real journey behind that. The frustration, the awakening, and the power that comes from finally working with your body instead of against it. Once again, this episode is for everyone. I am a strong believer that we all have compassion in us. And I think there would be a lot less hate in this world if we truly understood what other people are going through and if we truly just educated ourselves on things that we're not educated on. That means that if you're a man listening right now, this episode can be for you too. I am sure you have females in your circle, friends, sisters, mothers. This episode is for everybody. It is a good educational episode and a great conversation. So let's tune in and let's get into today's episode of The Paths We Take. All right, let's talk about supplements that actually earn a spot in my routine. Not hype, just results. I love the Tropica matcha because I love clean energy without the crash. But also I like how this matcha is smooth, it's not bitter, and I genuinely look forward to having it every day. There's also the pineapple creatine. Creatine isn't just for muscle performance, you guys. There is more research coming out about how it supports mental clarity, mood, etc., etc. If you train, think, move, breathe, you should be taking creatine, in my opinion. At nighttime, I also love their beauty custard. It legit tastes like dessert and supports recovery while I sleep. It is collagen, so it's great for the skin, the hair, joints, longevity. Both men and women, everybody should be taking collagen. You guys can use my code JORDSDAY10 at checkout to save yourself some money. That's JORDZDAY10 at checkout. JORDSDAY10. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, well, thank you again for coming on to the podcast, coming on the mic. It means a lot, people taking their time out of the day. But Suzanne, what one thing that I like to start with, and I ask everybody on the show, is if the person listening right now had an autobiography and it was about you, basically, what are some paths or what are some things in that autobiography that they would take, some key things that you wanted the listener to know?
Key things. Okay. So I suppose what started me on my path, and like I said, I just love the direction that you're taking because I have taken a different path over the years. And essentially, it started when I got cancer in 2008, and that was the start of a different pathway for me. And it really focused me on my health. So I suppose a key takeaway is, yeah, don't ever neglect your health. You only get one body, and it's one of the most important things that you have. And never ever ever take it for granted, because I did. And so I guess having that realization that I had taken my health for granted led me on a different path.
I think a lot of people do take it for granted. And unfortunately, for many, it is something that happens potentially that, flips a switch for them. And
Totally.
I think it's a shame that it gets to that point. But I think again, we all go through this journey and it all kind of everything happens, I believe, for a reason sometimes, really.
Absolutely. And I remember at the time I was reading a book, someone suggested it to me by Lance Armstrong. It's not about the bike. And that was one of the game changers for me to not be so aggressive with anger around cancer. That it was a learning curve for me, and I had to listen to me and try and not be influenced by others in so many different ways. But but I learnt a lot. I learnt a lot from that book. I learnt a lot about me, and so that was part of the direction. Although at that point I didn't know what my direction was, and it was part of the healing journey going through the treatment that sort of identified for me that I had to give something back, although I didn't know what that was. Yeah, so I didn't know what that was at the time, and I suppose my path has changed in many ways, all around health, but giving back in different ways, in different modalities, I suppose, different therapies, and has got me where I am today, which is again a different path.
Back in 2008 when you got that diagnosis, you were saying that kind of shifted, your want for health and things like that. Where was that journey back then that needed to be shift? Like if you didn't get that diagnosis, what was that path that you were on?
Uh, I was single. Probably, I wasn't. I worked. I was working at a uh, very challenging role, and I worked hard. I partied hard. I didn't sort of, take any account about how my health should fit into it. It was all about how I looked. I also, bearing of note, I also had very disordered eating about my body image, how much I exercised, what I ate, how much I retained in my body, because I was a binger, a purger, a laxative abuser, the whole thing, right up until my 40s. It wasn't good. So it was a wake up call for me that I just needed to take more care and notice of my body and my health.
And you mentioned that your journey was going towards giving and another path after that. When were and you were saying that you didn't know exactly what that path was. When essentially did you start figuring out what you wanted to do and where you wanted to shift things?
Mm. I think it was when my oncologist said to me, the best thing that you can do to survive this, Suzanne, is to focus on your health, to be the healthiest version of you. And at that point, I thought, what can I do? And I had an opportunity to make a job change, and so I decided to become a personal trainer. I thought, right, I can be healthy and I can give something back. So that was the overriding thing. After I left my last round of radiotherapy was, I had to give back. It was just words echoing in my mind as I walked out the door for the final time. It still stays with me. But I still at that point didn't know what I would do, and becoming a personal trainer, looking after other women's health or other people's health, I think that was probably where I thought that I could, and I did. I gave back at that point, which was amazing. Best years of my life.
What did you learn about yourself in that time period? Because I think people that go through that journey, becoming a trainer, helping other people in a different sense of, a more global, like you're working one on one sometimes with a lot of people. What did that look like for you, and what did that journey kind of teach you basically back then?
Yeah. So I was working in outdoor group personal training. So it was all group training. And like I say, we just had loads of fun, and uh, it was, it was about the individual, but more community group, keeping people together. And But what I noticed in there was that their obsession for weight and losing weight was becoming a little bit out of where I was comfortable. So during that period of time, I had another life challenge, and I started delving more into the mind. And I became a Reiki master and meditation teacher, and I became interested in hypnosis. But what I discovered in that transition was that, women would come to me very obsessed about their weight, their looks, what they wanted to, achieve in a short period of time, work hard, train hard, got great results, got the pictures of the girls standing with their 2 10-kilo medicine balls underneath their arms. They'd lost their 20 kilos.
Yeah.
But then within, a space of time, and it was different for everyone, they would come back to me if they'd left, the fold, so to speak, left the community and the group training, and said, Suzanne, what's happened? It's all come back again. My weight's come back on. And I guess at that point, I said, oh, well, initially I'd go, okay, well, we'll start again. Let's do it all again. But at some point, I thought that, and through the other training, that the mind had played a huge role here, and it was the power of the mind, and the mind-body connection, and that we really needed to, it wasn't just about diet and exercise, we really needed to address what was going on with their mind, their emotions, and that's, I think, was a part or the start of another journey in more delving into the mind, because I felt that that was the missing piece here. That was what was going to make something sustainable for someone, rather than focusing on the calories and the exercise, which is what we were taught as trainers in the early days. Yeah.
I think the mind is such a powerful thing. And even now, there's more and more research and more people out there, speaking of the importance of that side of things. Even myself, my background is physiotherapy. And even in that space, I think the mind is a lot like, I think that's where the disconnect is between, let's say, physio or personal training is like you were saying, you learn the physical side of things, but not the mental side of things. And if you're only working with half, then you can only, I think, half help somebody really. And that's where I think it's a very interesting space, because there's so much more and more education coming out about how important the mind is really. It's 2026 now. I think that's a common thing is a lot of people are now wanting to New Year's resolution, lose the weight, or they're wanting to start with fitness or whatever. Throughout your journey with the mind, with fitness, with personal training, what are some things that you often have to educate people with when it comes to weight loss? Those women that come back to you and say, "Oh, I've put it all back on." What are some things that you have to work through?
Yeah, I think the biggest and hardest thing is the quick fix. People want a quick fix. They've been taught for years. It's part of how we grew up, that's part of how I, as a child, was taught to. You had to have. Well, my parents, my mother used to say that they would strive for an 18-inch waist. Uh,
Yeah, tiny one. Yeah.
and and so how people look, and social media, all the external influences, but having that external influence, trying to be like that person, internally they're really having a battle, and it's the battle, and it's the fact that the lack of education, they don't understand what stress will do to the physiology of the body. So it's the psychobiology, it's the psychology and the biology that we need to work together. And so it's very much education. And for me, it's educating women that we need to look at health from the inside out. It's not an external quick fix, and it never will be. And it certainly won't be lasting, and it's quite damaging, particularly now as I'm moving into a different phase and age of life from an age perspective, that we really have to look at it from a very different perspective. Our body just won't do what it used to do. Those quick fixes that we used to do, which did work for a very short time, and then the body would go back to where it was, So it's, I think, for me, it's educating them on being healthy lifestyle medicine, because that's lasting, it's natural, It will work from the inside out. It will work but we need to incorporate the mind. It's not just about the nutrition and slowing down. It's about how your mind affects you hormonally, physiologically, our stress response, the whole thing. As you say, the connection is huge. And if your mind will affect your gut, your mind will affect your hormones, your gut will affect your mind. It turns into a bit of a nasty cycle. So we have to sort of circumnavigate it somewhere. And I always like to start here at the top.
What are some common threads that people come to see you about? Like, I think everybody is so individual and you can't really put everybody in the same category, of course. But are there any things that, when somebody comes to you for weight loss that you really have to kind of delve into or dive into when it comes to like just reshaping how they're speaking to themselves or how they're, let's say looking at food or things like that? Like, what are some common threads that you kind of have to pick out?
Yeah, emotional and binge eating. This is where people will come to me, and I suppose that's where I've positioned myself as a working with the psychology of eating and emotional and binge eating. Cravings and things. But that's where this is where we can do the biggest work in the mind. Binge eating more physiological as well, but the mind, your emotions will drive behavior. So, and we will always eat to self-soothe. It's just part of a human. As babies, a crying baby, as soon as you give it the breast or the bottle, within a nanosecond, bzz, it's quiet. And we carry that through life, but we forget that at that point as a baby, we're generally given love, affection, warmth, all of those things. Food doesn't give those things. It gives an instant fix, but it doesn't give the rest. So therefore, I'm helping women to go, well, okay, what we need to get to the root cause. What is driving you? What is the driving cause that's causing you to go and eat to self-soothe? And that's when we start addressing, from the psychology or the eating psychology perspective, how is it that we can support them so that they're not feeling in a way that they need to eat to feel better. And I guess that's the thing that I specialize in. Yeah.
I think making change is difficult for some people and it can be a quite daunting experience, but even the thought of, making a change or the thought of starting something new or speaking to somebody, like yourself can be quite daunting for people. And I can totally understand that, the anxiety of going through your life and why you're doing something a certain way or whatever. It can be quite daunting, signing up for something like that. And I do think that for somebody to maybe book an appointment, they have to be ready, right, to do that first step. But maybe for somebody who is not quite at that point, who is still trying to work on it themselves, still trying to build the confidence to maybe book in that appointment, what are some things that they need to think about and that they can start doing, would you say?
Listening,
Okay.
listening to
What do you
their
mean by that?
body.
Okay.
So listening and watching and understanding, taking more time. We live in such a fast, quick. We do everything really quickly. And before we know it, we've done what we don't want to do. And so it's slowing down and noticing, firstly, awareness, understanding, or even if you don't understand, just take a step back and go, okay, what did I just do? And step it back and go, okay, I did this, I ate this, and I felt really bad. But why did I eat that? Always take it one step back. And, well, what else could I have done instead of eating that? Did I really feel better afterwards? No, not really. And so, I ask women to create a what else list. What else can they do? Just as a very simple tool. What else can they do? They could breathe, they could walk, they could listen to something, they could talk to someone, they could go outside. There's lots of other things that they can do rather than eat to self-soothe. So I suppose it's just having awareness. When you're aware of something, you can then make that change, whatever it is. But listening to your body and going, okay, I'm hungry, I'm sad, what is it? I'm tired. And thinking, well, why am I so tired? Am I doing too many things? Am I not getting enough sleep? Am I saying yes to too many things? Am I not setting boundaries? So, there are so many other things. You can go right back to portion size, of course. How often am I eating during the day? Am I eating really late at night? Or, there's lots of different strategies when we understand how the body works. And that's where education comes in. And I think we're just so used to eat less, move more, and that's it. And it's not the answer. Mm.
I think another common thread potentially, and what I hear back when I was a personal trainer, when I was a physio, is I don't have the time. I don't have the time to maybe make a change. I don't have the time to be cooking these meals. I don't have the time for more exercise or whatever. I think we're living in a world, in a society now where is so go, go, go these days. People are, quote unquote, a little bit more busier than they were 10 years ago, maybe. Um, how do you kind of educate people, or how do you work through the I don't have time side of things?
Yeah, that's interesting because when we say we don't have time, our mind already says, nah, got no time. It's
Right,
not looking for any time.
right.
I'm too busy. I haven't got enough time. So your mind immediately shuts down. So you've already told it that. So it's asking a different question. How is it that I can create the time? When you ask your brain, your mind a different question, it looks differently for things. And so, perhaps doing an audit of, well, what do you do? Or are you just so busy doing the doing, you're not really looking at, well, where is my time going? Because, we all have that, I forgot what it is 160 or 190 odd hours a day. We've all got the same amount of time. Everyone does different things. So, how is it that they can? That is the driving question for my clients. How is it that you can? And they go, oh, rather than, no, I can't do this and I can't do that. You just shut everything down immediately. And so therefore they think. And it might take a little while, but if they, putting a bit of an audit down of how do they spend their time and their hours, but what do they want to do? Perhaps they're doing things that they don't really want to do. Can they delegate? Can they let it go? I suppose you need to be a little bit factual and, put things down on paper to find out, well, where is it all going, rather than just saying, oh, I haven't got enough time.
Yeah, I think I love that answer because I think, again, we all have the same time of the day. I can totally appreciate that. Me, for example, as a 30-year-old male, I don't have two children, to look after and to care for. So I can totally understand that there are responsibilities that I don't, and time that I don't have to put in, that a parent or a dad, my age would have to. I totally understand that, but I love your answer of maybe sitting down and what other areas can you not necessarily sacrifice, but reshift. Maybe there are less important stuff. I'm a big believer that if you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of others? And if you can't really put in maybe like even 3 hours a week of going to the gym, for example, or whatever it might be, then I think your care for others might be lacking as well. That might be a naive opinion, but that's just how I feel personally. Um, when it comes to, let's say somebody, it's New Year's. I think the whole New Year's resolution type of thing probably for the next couple of months is going to be going on. um I hear all the time, like, I'll start on Monday, or I'll start, on this date, or I'll start on that date, or I'll come see Suzanne on next month when I have X, Y, and Z. How do you, like, what would you say to somebody who might be itching to start, but always there's an excuse, or there's always, a following Monday or something like that? What is, for that person listening right now, what would you tell that person?
Once again, what is their concept of start? If they're feeling that I have to start something, then it's this huge big thing that they have to do and something extra they have to fit in. So, asking themselves, what would I like to begin with? I've had an idea that I'd like to go for a walk. Is that what you would like to do? Just start with a walk. Start with where you're at. If you've only got time for a walk now and you don't know anything else and you don't want to take on all this extra stuff, go for a walk. Educate yourself. Start to look at, well, perhaps do a pantry order or a fridge order and go, What's in here?
Yeah.
What's all this old stuff from Christmas? Psh,
Yeah.
let's clear it out. What's in my pantry? What's out of date? Just some little simple things just to start with to perhaps re-educate or bring in more, fresh, nourishing foods, more of that in, which will naturally, push out all the foods that are causing the challenge for them. But start small. Always start small. Don't think I have to start is some huge big thing, because we need to create. You need to create a habit. You need to create something that's sustainable first. Not bring in a whole heap of new things that it just overwhelms you and you go, oh my God, I can't do any of this. So all or nothing. I can't do anything, so I won't do anything. So just little things. Yeah.
I think you hit a key point there, and something that I've talked about as well, and I think many others, is building those habits. Like that sometimes can be the hard thing, but a lot of the times when you have, I get asked all the time, oh, well, how do you fit in triathlon training, work, this, that? And for me, I always say, well, I don't fit it in. It's just part of my routine now. I've done it for so long, it's habit. And yes, when I first started adding this and that, it was so hard. But again, now it's weird for me if I don't do it. Like I'm not in habit. I was just back home a couple weeks ago in Canada, and for 3 weeks I was out of habit. And for the first couple of weeks since I've been back in Australia, it's been hard to get back into a routine, but now I think it's back into habit. And again, I wake up the same time, I do this and that, and it's not really a burden, I would say. And I think that's where a lot of people might be scared of making change. They don't want to burden themselves, oh, I don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. or I don't want to wake up. Well, I think, okay, like you were saying, let's make tangible habits then. Maybe 4 a.m. isn't for you. It's not for everybody. And you probably don't have to if you can figure out how to do it a different way. For the person listening right now, that's maybe a all in type of person. Because I think there are people out there that are like, well, I can't start, let's say, 2 days a week, because then those other days a week, it's going to pull me out of habit. Or I feel like there are some people out there that are all in or nothing. Is that something that you have to deal with, or is that something that people need to get out of their minds as well? What do you say to that person?
Yeah, all in and all in or nothing can be quite detrimental, really, at the end of the day. When we do, getting back to when we do something because we enjoy doing it, and we make the time to do it. You make the time to get up at 4 a.m. and go for a run because you like it. It gives you a high. You've trained your mind and your body, and it was difficult to start with. But you set yourself an intention and you gave it a good crack and you just kept going and going until, this is normal. That's what we do. And so we really just need to start with intention on something. And even if it's just 3 things, if you're an all or nothing person, just start with 3 things. Go all in on 3 things. And maybe that's little, drinking water, for instance. Maybe it's making sure that you're getting enough sleep, getting off your phone at night. Just 3 little things. And obviously it depends on your goal, but what is your intention? And stick with something that you can do rather than too many things that you can't do. And if that satisfies your all or nothing, I can do these 3 things, and I actually enjoy doing these 3 things. And before you know it, within 2 or 3 weeks, that starts to form a habit. I'm just doing it now. What's my next 3 things? So always start small and just start with intention.
You were saying that, after you became a PT, then you found the mind, you found Reiki, you found hypnosis, all of that. From there, where was your path setting out? Where did things shift around that time, and where did you go from there?
I went to studied neurolinguistics, so I became an NLP master practitioner and an eating psychology coach, so very much around the mind. So just bringing, working more with women around emotional and binge eating, because that's, I've walked that path before. I've have lived experience, so that is still very much a high focus of what I do, although the women that come to see me, and this is where my path has changed again, are more my age. They're all, mid 50s, 60s. So we're working together in similar lived experience. However, now it's about educating them on how it is that they can make the lifestyle changes that are going to support their body in the new age and stage of life. Because what we were doing, before, even in our 30s, 40s, and typically 40s, mid 40s is when, we start changing from a hormonal level. But even up until then, our body is just not going to do, if we try and do the same thing now, we're not going to get the same result as we did back then. And so, from an educational perspective, that's how I want women to understand, to practice more kindness and compassion. And in fact, any woman, even a teenager that, or a younger 20-year-old that would come to see me with a challenge around emotional binge eating, it's about kindness and compassion. It's about not being so hard and fighting yourself. Because as soon as we start having those internal battles, the body will just go, whoa, what's going on? And we go into fight or flight. And we know physiologically that the fight or flight response is going to be the biggest blocker to weight loss, if that is their goal. So, it's really about working with the mind and having them understand that fight, even though others can't see and they're doing all the right things, like they're meditating, they're doing this and that, but they haven't got the response or the result here because this is driving the physiology. And that's what we need to work on.
What are some shifts? So you were saying that, things that women have done maybe in their 30s and 40s that worked then don't necessarily work now, for example. What are some of those things that people need to shift or think about a bit more?
Eating, obviously, how they eat, eating less, being really restrictive, going on some kind of diet, not being balanced in their eating, and how they exercise. We generally younger, we exercise harder, try and push. We're right into pushing. In all regards, just going more to the extreme. We've got to do harder. But that just creates the stress response and it backfires. It just will absolutely backfire on them. Runners, for instance, and we've seen them, people that run a lot, they're always running, but they're still, quite a large frame. And you just go, oh, that's interesting. Why, is that body shape but we don't know what's going on in the background. And it could be that they're doing a really high pressure job. They are running themselves to the ground literally to get the weight off or to, cover off on all the wine or the chocolate or the cheese that they had on the weekend or, trying to play catch up. But it's actually stressing out the body. It's not happy. And when it's not happy, it will start to store weight, not build muscle, which is our biggest calorie burner, and store fat. So the stress response is such an untouched area for many people who are trying to lose weight. And the fact if they're restricting and exercising more, they're adding to the load. And then they're not understanding the allostatic load, the long-term stress load of what we've done in our lives, whether it be jobs, family, life, whatever, and not taking that into account now, that all that stress in the past years, the body still takes account. It will still keep count. And even though I'm doing all the right things, but nothing's happening.
I think that's a very interesting point because sometimes we all think of stress, oh, I have work stress, or I have, stress of a job, or I have a stress in family or something like that. But, what you're saying is sometimes too, the physical stress adds up as well. And, the stress of restricting adds up as well. Like the body sometimes doesn't differentiate stress, from work versus over exercising or under eating or whatever. It handles stress the same way and the hormones kind of get out of whack. And I think that's something that we often forget really. Again, even as a physio or back when I was a PT, men and women, like oh, well, I'm just going to undereat, I'm going to exercise more, or like on the weekends, I just do whatever. And, I've had a party and all of this alcohol, or I binge eat and I'll get back to it on a Monday. And again, like you've just all weekend then put your body through stress. And then you're doing maybe an extra session on Monday. That's even more stress. So I can understand why somebody can find it so difficult to lose weight. Um, how how does somebody in that state pick and choose what stressors that they need to focus on? Like, is there any stressors you think is more important to really tackle in the beginning, or does the body not work that way?
I think it's their own self-talk.
Okay.
That's the first thing.
Wow,
Yeah,
yeah.
how do they talk to themselves?
Mm,
And it's so hidden,
yeah.
even sometimes from ourselves,
Yeah.
and the way that we talk to ourselves absolutely will affect the stress levels of your body. And the way that we look at ourselves, every morning, oh, I hate that thing, or I don't like that thing, or
Yeah.
I can't wear what I want to wear. As soon as you wake up,
Yeah.
your mind has a negative thought process
Mm,
going on. And if you're not setting the right intention for the day, then the rest of the day is going to look like that because you feel uncomfortable in your clothes, or there's pizza coming around for lunch, and you're just going, oh, and then
yeah.
you'll eat it, and then you
Mhm.
feel bad, or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's the way that you talk to yourself is the very first thing that I try and change from an if we're talking about that, um, because that is the most damaging. We say the most horrible things to ourselves. We would never say this kind of stuff to anyone, not our children, not our best friend. We would never speak to anyone like that. So I always ask my people to practice kindness and compassion to themselves, and just take that deep breath and give themselves that hug, and go, okay, well, this is we need to change that level of thinking in order for the physiology of our body to change, in order for our body to do what it's trying to do, what we want it to do. But if we keep doing things in a certain way, it's only reacting out of survival. It's just gone into survival response, and that fight or flight. It's trying to protect itself, and but we don't see it that way. So, and oftentimes we become very disconnected from our body. We're all in our head, and we're talking and saying all this horrible stuff, and we don't like anything down here, so we don't pay any attention to what's happening here, and we're disembodied. So, becoming more connected and embodied with the person that we want to be, treating our body as the person, this vision, this image of ourselves over here, we need to start doing that now. And that includes how we talk to ourselves because, when we're looking and feeling the way that we want to feel, well, we do feel good. We do think good. Our mind is in a good space. So, as challenging as that is, it's bringing that good space here in the here and now to give your body that chance to get to where you want it to be, down the track.
When we talk about that frustration, when we talk about putting the body through that fight or flight response, what effects does that have to the body? To the person listening that doesn't quite understand what all of that means, what kind of effects do they need to really understand all of that frustration the fight and flight constantly puts on the body?
Well, it produces more cortisol,
Okay.
basically, and it will raise insulin and blood sugar levels, but it's primarily the cortisol. And cortisol is the thing that will tell the body to hold on to fat. It will slow down your digestive system, and when your digestive system begins to slow down and shut down, it's not going to digest, the food that's there. All the energy goes into arms and legs for quick fighting and, fast running. So if it's not able to digest the food and it's sitting there and it's not being assimilated into the body, well, what does the body do with it? It turns toxic and yuck and goes into fat stores. And so our fat stores are the place where we store toxins. And so, of course, when we're eating foods that are highly processed, the ultra-processed foods, the body goes, well, this isn't food. What's this? What am I going to do with this? It's going to put it into a fat cell because that's the safest place for it to go. But of course, we are seeing our bodies expand in a way that's not helpful. I think something that some people don't really understand is that even when we eat fast, your body thinks it's under attack. It's going, "Whoa, where's this saber-toothed tiger coming from? Like, something's not right here. I need to get ready to run away." And so, your digestive system can become slower and sluggish. You might get food stuck right here and you just, "I can't swallow. I feel like, it's not going down properly," because your body's going, no, we're under attack. You're eating too fast. So, just little things like that, slowing down, breathing, getting more oxygen into your body, just the simple breath. These are the antidotes to stress. And so, stress creates cortisol, which creates body doesn't want to build muscle because, it's in survival mode and muscle takes up a lot of energy. It wants to hold on to fat because that's how we survive is fat. And so it's going to hold on to weight. But when we start understanding that we can bring all of that down with our inbuilt, on-built antidote to stress, which is the breath, slow it all down, then things start to change. We think better, we move better, we eat better, our body functions better.
I think that's too like that could explain like I really like that point about eating slower, eating fast, because I sometimes even experience that, have running late in the morning, eating too fast, and then on my way to work, oh, it hasn't sit right, or like my heart, I have heartburn all the time, and that plays up, and little things like that. Like, of course, I've just put the body probably through attack mode, really. So when it goes through attack mode, things aren't going to play as they should, really. So I think those are like that's a cool little tip, because I think those are things that people can start, on day one without doing anything else, like taking time for their meals and, maybe not wolfing it down or whatever in the morning or at lunch or whatever it might be. But all right, I want to talk to you about sunglasses made for runners by runners. That's why I wear Re Your Run sunglasses. Lightweight, zero bounce, and they stay locked in even when you are sweating through speed sessions, long runs, out in the sun, whatever it might be. They are stylish enough for daily wear, durable enough for race day, and just the perfect combo. Honestly, I love brands that get the sport, get the grind, and support the running community, not just the podium finishers. If you're serious about your run gear and want shades that perform as hard as you, go check out Re Your Run. Use my code Jordan10 to save some money and get yourself some stylish sunnies that actually perform and look good. Run smart, stay protected, look good doing it with Re Your Run sunnies. I think another common thing that I used to hear all the time is, "Oh, Jordan, I just found like I was just at the shops on the weekend and I found the supplement that, is supposed to burn all this fat, or I found this that's supposed to make this a bit easier, or that." Like, I think you've alluded to this before, but when you have somebody coming to you who wants that quick pill, who wants that quick fix, and, I have a wedding, let's say in 2 months, and it needs to be off by then, for the pictures and all of that. How do you educate somebody in that mindset that's very, I need it now, I need it now, I need it now?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's challenging because people do want that, and I suppose again, we want to help our clients get a result, but I think there has to be a caveat behind that result, if we get there, is not likely to be sustainable. It's going to be hard, you know, and it's not natural for the body to get to that space in such a short period of time. It takes 3 months at a cellular level for the body to start to change. It takes 12 months for a body to actually lose weight and keep it off. And there's been massive, studies done around this. So trying to get, a quick fix here there's work to be done. And the client needs to be prepared for that and to make big changes. And they're the obvious changes by bringing in the more natural foods that will just let go of the processed foods. It's working on the mind, getting enough sleep, working on exercise, obviously, and very targeted. type of exercise based on, their age and stage of life. So it's a big ask for a body to do that. And if they're prepared to put 100% in, they may get there. But I never guarantee it. I'll never guarantee it because I don't know what else is going on in their body. If they've got a thyroid condition, if they've got, a blood sugar condition, there could be all sorts of things. So I suppose, I'd be getting them to get some blood tests from their GP. Is everything okay? From a blood work perspective, is there anything that's going to block us here? What's your digestive system like? Are you regular? Just these little things, and just making sure that they are supporting themselves nutritionally. And from a supplemental perspective, vitamin D, for instance, that's something that we really do need to supplement, even here in Australia, if we're not spending enough time outside. Most other things, other than magnesium, we can get from food. We can still get magnesium from food and zinc, but I suppose that there's a time and place for supplementation, but we can get a lot of it from the food that we eat. And granted, it is a lot of food, and people go, "Oh, I don't want to eat that much food," So there's a bit of a trade-off here, and it's education and understanding.
Yeah. I love that the blood's point, because I think unless we know what potentially needs to be supplemented or what needs to help, then we're just kind of walking in the dark. And sometimes that can maybe be a bit more detrimental as well. And a lot of us these days, if we open our pantries, I think a lot of us have supplements, oh,
Do
so
we
and so
need
was
them?
taking this, and exactly,
Got my
right?
friends taking it.
Yeah, my
I
friend's
should
taking
taking it.
it, or so and so told me to take this, so I've been taking it. That's something that I hear all the time, and I've been guilty of as well. But I think unless you actually have maybe spoken to your dietitian or your doctor, whoever's ordered the bloods, to look
Yes.
into those things, then you could be potentially doing more harm, or it's just going to waste. Supplements aren't cheap these days.
No, that's right. You may as well put it into food.
Exactly.
Food and time for you, whether that's a gym membership or and they're so cheap these days, $8, $9 a week or something. Do you really want to put it into a huge, supplement, something that you take that, doesn't have the phytonutrients or the fact that your body has to chew and digest food and support the gut health, all of these things. It's a big topic.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's something that I can understand. If you haven't gone to uni for that, or you haven't had, a course in that, or whatever it might be, it can go over a lot of people's heads. I'm not even trained in nutrition, and a lot of it, I've been working in that space for years, but even a lot of it goes over my head these days, because there's just so much out there. But I think the first thing and the first step is always maybe testing or figuring out essentially what needs to be helped real well. It's as easy as that, I think. In my opinion, is get a blood test potentially. Um, when it comes to, let's say, somebody who's in that menopausal state, and exercise, you alluded to this before, that, maybe not going as hard, or going 6 days a week or whatever. What is something that those women need to really start understanding about exercise when they get to that stage of life?
Don't push. I'm a trainer. I've used to pushing, and just recently I found myself, after New Year's back at the gym, and I was going hard. I went, oh, wait a minute, and I just looked at my BPM, and it was way over where it should have been. I went, oh, I'm doing too hard. And for many women, if it's hard, they don't want to go back. But the body sees it as being too hard. We can't push. It's working at 55 to 65% of your max heart rate. And you need to obviously check that with your PT or your GP, 220 minus your age. But we don't need to go over that. Interesting. Yeah, we don't have to do the really hard stuff, because the really hard stuff is a stressor on the body. We don't need to go heavy. Before I was sort of researching more about menopause, I was trying to do, body weight deadlifts and above. But my back wasn't coping very well. It was just, I feel a bit weird doing this. my body didn't like it. I was trying to reach a number that so I could see the other girl down the road doing, and so I really just have to be. I had to put my foot down on my training to go, wait a minute, no, this isn't, even though my body is used to doing this type of exercise, it's not helping me now. It's actually stressing me, the physiology of my body. So I can get the same result. Women of this age and stage of life, we need more rest. We don't need to go so hard. We still need to do strength training. Obviously, we still need to work our heart and lungs. Because that's, a very important part, and more so as we age. But we don't need to do it as hard as we used to. And because we're not doing it as hard as we used to, for many, it's more achievable. It's more enjoyable. And when you enjoy doing something, you go and do it. It's not hard. You're not thinking, oh God, I'm going to have to smash myself today at the gym, or I'm exhausted when I get home. No, we don't have to do that anymore, which is pretty nice, really. We can still get a good result. And that's, from health, from lifestyle medicine perspective, we still need to do these things. Yes, we absolutely need to move, but always move in ways that you love. Don't go to the gym because someone else goes to the gym and you hate going to the gym, because that, in fact, is causing another internal stress response because you hate it. If you like going hiking, if you like doing Pilates, if you like getting into the pool, if you just like going for really long walks, then those things are just as good. And doing some strength training, easy bands work, for instance, just the lighter weights, basic muscle groups. We don't have to get complicated.
So for those women who, are in that stage of life, need to rest more, don't go as hard potentially as well all the time. But I think too, like you were saying, like if you're in a stage like that where you're enjoying it, that's great. And I think for a lot of people, maybe going 5 days a week for a group class is also social in addition to, let's say, physical and whatnot. For somebody like that who's going maybe 5, 6 days a week, do they need to be going less? Is that okay for them? What would you say to that person?
Well, it's depending what are they doing for those, because you can go to a lovely stretch class or a yoga class, or you could just sit and have a natter if you're on the cross trainer, for instance. That's just as good. If you were going 5 days a week, if that's part of your routine, that's what you want to do. But don't go heavy. If you're doing the pump classes, for instance, don't start loading up when they say load up. Do what you can do. That's within your capability. Don't push yourself to the next level. Just keep it consistent. It's important that our body is trying to work towards homeostasis, which is balance. And we're not imbalanced in any area. But social connection is huge, and that gets us outside. And that's another huge important thing. We need to get our eyes into the daylight. Just from the hormonal perspective, and how our body's going to sleep better, producing melatonin, all of those things. So, I would say continue, but don't go hard, don't push. Yeah, do things that you like to do. Make it a balance of strength work and stretching, or like cardio, but don't smash it.
Yeah. And I like that answer because I think it's important to differentiate, like you were saying, going 5, 6 days a week to a pump class and pushing yourself, like you were maybe when you were 20, versus going 5 days a week and maybe going for a hike one day, movement is movement. And I think like that's where a lot of people might go wrong or confuse the whole rest versus, deloading and that kind of stuff. They might think, oh, well, we're telling you to rest. Let's just not do anything on Monday. Well, you can maybe go for something less impactful, maybe a walk or a hike or something like that, right? So I think like that's a great point there. Is it depends on what exactly you're doing, basically. When it comes to food, what is some things that women need to really shift in that menopausal state then? So when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to maybe under eating or overeating or whatever it might be, what's a common maybe 2 or 3 things that they really need to start thinking about?
I think protein, but so many people, I got to keep my protein up. Um, and I'm not against protein. Animal based, just in this age and stage of life, obviously it's part of the macronutrients. We need to have protein, but in this age and stage of life, animal based proteins contain a lot of fats. And our body is very prone to taking on board extra fats, estrogenic fats. But animal fats and meat, animal-based proteins, creates a thermogenic response in the body. It's creates heat, and if we're having a lot of meat at night, for instance, it's going to make it more difficult to sleep because it's going to heat up your body. And if those that are suffering from night sweats, or they just wake up, or for whatever reason they just feel hot, having a big meat-based meal is going to heat them up, which is going to impact their sleep, which is then going to impact their stress levels, which is then going to impact how they eat, which is then going to impact how their body stores weight. So we don't need that much meat. Plant-based proteins is my preference, and if they are going to eat animal-based proteins, have them in the middle of the day. The middle of the day is when your body's burning its most amount of energy. When the sun's at the highest point of the sky, the energy levels of our body are the highest. So our main meal should be at the middle of the day. Dinner should be the lightest meal, things like fish or vegetarian type meals. Still have something, in the morning at breakfast, whether that doesn't have to be crack of dawn, it could be mid-morning, for instance, because many women will say, but I don't have breakfast. But we still want to keep that 12 hours of fasting, but not to a point where we're going 15, 18, 20 hours, because that can be stressful too. From nutritional perspective, making sure that you're eating balanced meals, always balanced. I prefer the Mediterranean style. It's very well researched in lifestyle medicine because it contains all the nutrients that we need, women need, or older people need at this age and stage of life. Reducing animal-based proteins to more plant-based proteins. It's lighter, the body digests it better, and particularly of an evening, and this will depend on what your iron levels are like. That there's so many sort of scenarios here that this is very general. And that's where you go back to your blood tests. What are your iron levels? What are your ferritin levels like? What needs to happen there? But very generally, bring it back to more plant-based proteins. Of an evening, just very light fish, chicken maybe. Have the animal-based proteins at lunch, and eat in a way that makes you feel satisfied, not over full satiated. It's listening to your body once again by slowing down, and that's when we can tell whether our body's had enough to eat or not. Usually, but I've always eaten a big meal. I was taught that as a child, and they just load up on this big meal without thinking about, well, you actually don't have to eat all of that, and it's probably habit on my plate, it's gone. So, reducing the portion sizes by just and understanding what your body needs by slowing down. And when you breathe in between each mouthful, for instance, you're starting to, oxygenate your digestive system. You'll start to feel that sense of fullness quicker. And then there's that 20 minutes. It takes 20 minutes before you actually feel really full. Otherwise, you go over full. And it's just eating to satiety.
I think it's those are some interesting points because it also depends on where you are in the world. Like there are places in the world that are already good at that, largest meals midday or, where the sun's at the highest. And some of those places are a lot more, I don't want to say more healthy, but, they have less heart disease and this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And, they're
Blue
only
zones.
eating, exactly, they're only eating to 80% and
Yeah.
till that satiation. And I think in Australia, unfortunately, we're moving towards more where North America is eating like. And I, being from North America, like just again being home for the last couple of weeks ago, I noticed myself that the portion sizes there were almost double, even in Canada, to what they were
Mm,
here. And I had to like, when I was at a restaurant, I had to like take away, half of my meal or whatever because it was literally double. And
yeah,
I am
wow.
noticing that here in Australia, portions are getting bigger and bigger, and it's becoming more like that. But also, I think for a lot of people, dinner is the biggest meal of the day.
Generally, yeah.
And I think this whole like, for everybody, I think everything you walk through the supermarket these days and everything is protein, high protein this, high protein that. And I don't really think anybody needs that much protein that we think it is. It's again,
No.
it's this new marketing scheme, really. But I
Mm,
think those are interesting points that, like other places in the world are already doing this kind of stuff and it's research there. And we know that, they have less disease, heart disease, diabetes, that kind of stuff. So why, shouldn't we be doing it
mm,
really in that
mm.
sense?
Yeah, yeah,
We've talked about, your path so far, your journey so far. Where are you at now in your path?
yeah.
And where are things kind of headed, would you say?
Yeah, that's interesting because um, I found myself in a really big place of overwhelm, too much, and I needed to pull back. I was really listening to myself, how much I used to be able to do. I've had my own business for about 8 years now. Prior to that, I had my PT business. Then I went back into the workforce, and so for about 8 years, I've been running my own business, and the I guess the stresses and the workload of being an entrepreneur can be, you're always on. And so I needed to start listening to my body. And so I pulled back. And now I'm moving into more of the online space where I can still educate, which is what I want to do. I want to be able to educate women and see them, uh, but not in such not as big as I was before. So I'm coming back. I'm coming down, and that suits my. This is me listening to my body, and I think setting my boundaries and practicing what I preach. Really, that at some stage where I was flat out busy and doing all the things. Um, at this and I could do back even 8 years ago, but now I'm noticing I can't do all those things. It takes a toll, and I'm really having to push back on some of those things. So I'm moving more into the online space. I'm building an app, and I still want to educate and with blogs and um, uh, social media. And I guess that's where I want to focus so that the women have a starting point. I can educate them. I can support them still, with my expertise, but give them that peace of mind or that understanding that okay, things are different now, and I know that they're probably in a really busy space. So what I've created is something that doesn't take a lot of time. So I'm rebuilding a website, putting this app together, and still doing some client one-on-one based work, but more downsize than I had been before because everyone gets the best of me and I get the most of me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such a great message because I think it's very important for everybody in any part of their life to maybe have like I think reflection is key. It's something that it's a skill and just like any skill, you need to practice, you need to hone it and whatnot. But I think a lot of people forget to reflect on where they're at, what things might need to be deloaded or shifted or, focus on less so that, your goals can move into whatever direction you want to now. And I think again, like it goes back to what we alluded to before. If you can't take care of yourself, then how are you going to, reach your goal, help others or whatever. So I think like that's an important message is for everybody and the person listening right now, like maybe taking a look at if you're overwhelmed or if you're doing too much or you're feeling the stress of it all, like what can you maybe let go of so that you can hone in onto whatever else is more important to you, really.
What really lights the fire? Yeah, like what is it that you really want to do?
Yeah.
And you know, the older we get, the less time we have, and so we want to make the most of that time. What do
Yeah.
we really want to do? And you know, then of course there's travel in store for me, and you know, camping and doing all those things
Yeah.
that I can at this age and stage of life. Just you know, moving into those retirement stages, but I still can't let go of what I'm doing because I love that. You know, that's my passion. So it's finding a way that I can still do the things that I love to do, but do what I love to do without giving everything off me, which that's what I was doing before. Yeah.
Now, Suzanne, I know you're saying that you're rebuilding the website and everything, but maybe if you don't mind, to the people listening right now, where can people find you? Socials, that kind of stuff.
Yep. So I've got an Instagram, Menopause Mind Body Reset, so they can find me there. Facebook group, same, Menopause Mind Body Reset. Those are the two main socials at the moment. Website will be up in February, late February
Okay.
at this stage.
Perfect.
But it's same. It's Menopause Mind Body Reset. So
Okay.
basically, it's you know wherever you put in Menopause Mind Body Reset, you'll see something
You'll
come
see it.
up. Yes.
Amazing. And that'll be in the show notes for you listening. So
Thank you.
you can go and find that. Thank you for coming on. I
Thank
think
you.
this was great. Thank you for sharing your path and your journey as well. I think it can be like, again, a daunting thing to come on a podcast and,
Yeah.
share your story with stranger technically. But yeah, thank you. I think the listener right now will definitely appreciate this. And I think there's lots of tangible things that people can start even like, tomorrow basically, or today or
Totally.
right now, really. So thank you for coming on. And yeah.
Thank you, Jordan. It's been a pleasure. Loved it.
And that is it for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, please hit that 5-star review button. It really helps out the podcast. It shows your support. I want to thank Suzanne again for coming on the podcast. Once again, you listening can head to the show notes, follow Suzanne on socials. Her website will be live soon. I hope you got a lot from this episode. There was a lot in here. It was a great chat. I will talk to you on the next episode of The Paths We Take.